future wife. I don't know your name yet. I don't know where you are right now or what kind of day you've had. Maybe you're laughing with friends. Maybe you're staring at the ceiling, wondering if love will ever find you. But wherever you are, there's something I need you to know. People often ask me why I stayed alone for so long. They thought I was afraid of love. They thought I was too quiet, too distant, or too broken to let someone in. But the truth was much simpler than that. I wasn't running away from love. I was waiting for you, not because I knew who you were, not because I had some perfect image of you in my mind, but because deep inside my heart, there was always a feeling that someone extraordinary was still on her way. So while the world rushed into temporary connections, I chose patience. While others settled for attention, I waited for understanding. And while many people called my loneliness a weakness, I carried it like a promise, because every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, every moment I spent walking this road alone was quietly preparing me for the day our paths would finally cross. And when that day comes, I want you to know this: I never stayed alone because I had no one to love. I stayed alone because my heart was saving its deepest love for you, future wife. There is something I have wanted to tell you for a very long time. One day, when we are sitting together in the quiet comfort of a life we built with our own hands, you might look at me and ask a simple question. Why were you alone for so long? And maybe I will smile before answering. Maybe I will take a moment, because some stories are not meant to be rushed. Some stories deserve silence before words. The truth is, I was never alone because I hated love. I was never alone because I thought I was too good for people, and I was never alone because nobody wanted me. I stayed alone because my heart refused to settle for anything that wasn't real. In a world where people were constantly searching for someone to fill the emptiness inside them, I spent years learning how to carry my own. I watched people jump from relationship to relationship. I watched them promise forever after knowing each other for a few weeks. I watched them hold hands while secretly feeling lonely, and I realized something important. Being with someone is not the same as belonging with someone. Sharing a room is not the same as sharing a soul. Many people fear being alone, but I feared something else. I feared waking up beside someone who didn't truly see me. I feared giving my heart to a connection that only existed because neither of us wanted to be lonely. I feared building a future on feelings that were temporary, so I waited, not because waiting was easy. It wasn't. There were nights when silence felt heavier than words. There were moments when I wondered if love had forgotten my address. There were days when everyone around me seemed to be moving forward while I stood still. Friends got married, families grew, stories unfolded, and sometimes I found myself standing in the background, smiling for everyone else while quietly wondering when my own chapter would begin. But even then, something inside me refused to rush, because deep down, I believed that the kind of love I wanted couldn't be forced. It couldn't be hunted down. It couldn't be created through desperation. Real love arrives when two souls are ready to recognize each other, and until then, all I could do was continue becoming the man I hoped you deserved. You see, future wife, there were opportunities, there were chances to choose comfort instead of patience. There were people who came into my life. Some were kind, some were beautiful. Some made me laugh, some made me feel less alone for a little while. But every time I considered giving my heart away, something felt incomplete, not wrong, just incomplete, like reading a book with missing pages, like hearing a song that never reaches its chorus, like standing at a door that isn't yours and pretending to feel at home. So I kept walking, not because they weren't enough, but because my heart knew its story wasn't finished. And perhaps that sounds strange. Maybe it sounds unrealistic. But some feelings don't need explanation. Some truths simply exist. I carried this quiet belief that somewhere in this enormous world there was a woman whose heart was learning lessons at the same time mine was, a woman who was growing through her own storms, a woman who was becoming stronger through her own disappointments, a woman who was collecting scars that would one day help her understand mine. You, even before I knew your name, even before I knew your smile, even before I knew the sound of your voice, something inside me was already making room for you, not your face, not your appearance, not some fantasy version of who you might be, but your presence, your soul, the person you were becoming. And because of that, I couldn't settle for temporary feelings. I couldn't trade forever for convenience. I couldn't offer someone a heart that was waiting for something deeper. There were lonely nights, more than I can count, nights when the world seemed asleep, and my thoughts felt louder than ever. Nights when I wondered what you were doing, whether you were awake somewhere too, whether you were staring at the same moon, whether you were carrying your own questions about love, whether life had been gentle with you or cruel, whether someone had broken your heart, whether you still believed in the possibility of something beautiful. I didn't know, but somehow thinking about you made the loneliness softer, not because you were there, but because believing you existed gave meaning to the waiting. The years taught me things. They taught me patience. They taught me resilience. They taught me that love is not just about finding the right person. It is also about becoming the right person. So while I was alone, I worked on myself, not perfectly, not successfully every day. But honestly, I faced parts of myself that needed healing. I confronted fears I had ignored. I learned how to sit with pain instead of running from it. I learned how to enjoy my own company. I learned that happiness cannot depend entirely on another human being, and perhaps most importantly, I learned that love is not something you demand, it is something you prepare for. Every disappointment became a lesson, every setback became a teacher, every heartbreak became a reminder that temporary things often leave permanent marks. There were moments when I almost gave up, moments when cynicism seemed easier than hope, moments when it felt safer to believe that real love only happened in stories, because believing in something you cannot see requires courage, and courage becomes difficult when years pass without answers. Yet every time I felt myself losing faith, life would whisper something unexpected, a conversation, a memory, a sunrise, a quiet moment of clarity, something that reminded me not to close my heart, something that reminded me that beautiful things often take time. And so I continued waiting, not passively, not helplessly, but faithfully. I continued building a life worth sharing. I continued becoming someone capable of protecting another person's heart, because one day, if I was fortunate enough to meet you, I didn't want to arrive empty-handed. I wanted to bring wisdom, patience, kindness, understanding. I wanted to offer more than affection. I wanted to offer stability, trust, peace, the kind of love that remains when excitement fades, the kind of love that survives difficult seasons, the kind of love that doesn't disappear when life becomes complicated. And maybe that is why solitude became my companion for so long. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every year spent alone shaped me. Every challenge refined me. Every unanswered question strengthened me. The world often treats waiting as weakness, but I discovered something different. Sometimes waiting is an act of love. Sometimes choosing not to settle is an act of respect. Sometimes protecting your heart until it finds the right home is one of the bravest decisions you can make, because settling is easy, loneliness is difficult, pretending is easy, honesty is difficult, temporary comfort is easy, patience is difficult. And every day I chose patience. Every day I chose to believe that what was meant for me would arrive when the time was right, not because life guarantees happy endings, but because hope deserves a chance. You may never fully understand how many moments led me here, how many roads I walked, how many lessons I learned, how many versions of myself had to disappear before I became the man who could truly appreciate you. But every single one mattered. Every disappointment, every delay, every lonely season, every unanswered prayer, every silent night, they were all shaping a heart that was learning how to love more deeply, a heart that wasn't interested in perfection, a heart that wasn't searching for someone flawless, a heart that simply wanted something real, something honest, something lasting. And through all those years, even when I couldn't see the future, I carried this quiet certainty that somewhere beyond all the waiting, beyond all the uncertainty, beyond all the lonely chapters, there was a woman whose arrival would make sense of everything that came before, a woman who would not erase the pain of the past, but help transform its meaning, a woman whose presence would feel less like an exciting beginning and more like finally coming home after a very long journey, a woman whose heart would recognize mine in the same way mine had been waiting for hers, a woman worth every year of patience, a woman worth every unanswered question, a woman worth every season of solitude, a woman worth protecting my heart for, a woman worth waiting for. Future wife, I often wonder what that day will look like, not the grand version of it, not the movie scene, not the perfect moment people imagine when they think about love. I wonder about the ordinary details, the small things, the things most people overlook, because I have a feeling that when my heart finally finds you, it won't feel like fireworks exploding across the sky. It will feel like peace, the kind of peace a tired traveler feels when he finally reaches home after a long journey, the kind of peace that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind of peace that simply arrives and stays. For so many years, I have lived with an empty space inside my life, not a painful emptiness, not a desperate emptiness, just a space that was never meant to be filled by anyone except you. And one day, without either of us fully realizing it, that space will no longer be empty. Maybe we will meet when neither of us expects it. Maybe life will place us together in the middle of an ordinary day, a day that begins like every other day, a day that seems completely forgettable, and yet years later we will remember every detail because it was the day everything changed. I imagine seeing you for the first time, not knowing who you are, not understanding why something feels different, not realizing that the woman standing in front of me is someone my heart has been searching for long before my eyes ever found her. Maybe we will start with a simple conversation, a few words, a shared smile, an unexpected laugh, nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, yet somehow every sentence will feel familiar, as if two strangers are remembering each other instead of meeting for the first time, because I believe the deepest connections don't begin with excitement, they begin with recognition, a quiet recognition, a feeling that says, there you are, the feeling of finding someone you never knew, yet somehow always missed. I imagine learning about your life little by little, listening to your stories, hearing about the moments that shaped you, the victories that made you stronger, the disappointments that made you wiser, the heartbreaks that taught you caution, the dreams you still carry inside your heart. And I know I won't fall in love with only your happiness. I will fall in love with your struggles too, because your struggles helped create the woman you became. Every difficult chapter, every tear, every lonely night, every lesson, they all played a part in bringing you closer to me. And as I listen, I won't see your scars as flaws. I will see them as proof of your strength, proof that life tested you and you continued moving forward, proof that you survived seasons that could have made you bitter, proof that you kept believing in love even when it would have been easier to stop. That is the woman I want to know, not the perfect version, the real version, the honest version, the human version. And slowly, as days become weeks and weeks become months, something beautiful will begin to happen. The walls we spent years building will start to come down, not all at once, not dramatically, just little by little, one conversation at a time, one act of trust at a time, one vulnerable moment at a time, because real love isn't built through grand promises. It is built through consistency, through showing up, through choosing each other again and again. And I imagine the day when I finally realize that I am no longer carrying life alone, the day when your presence becomes part of my everyday world. The day when good news feels incomplete until I share it with you. The day when difficult moments feel lighter because you are beside me. The day when your happiness matters as much as my own. The day when your pain becomes something I want to help carry. Because love changes the way we see life. Suddenly, the future is no longer a place we walk toward alone. It becomes something we build together. I think about the conversations we will have late at night, the honest ones, the conversations where we speak about our fears, our dreams, our insecurities, our hopes, the conversations where neither of us has to pretend, where neither of us has to be stronger than we really are, because true love creates safety, and safety creates honesty. I want to know the parts of you that nobody else sees, the quiet thoughts, the hidden worries, the secret dreams, the things you rarely tell anyone. I want to know what makes you smile when nobody is watching. I want to know what keeps you awake at night. I want to know what your heart has been carrying all these years, because loving someone is more than admiring them. It is understanding them. And I want to spend a lifetime understanding you. I imagine the first time you realize how deeply I care, not through words, not through gifts, not through grand gestures, but through presence, through reliability, through the simple fact that I stay, because so many people know how to arrive. Very few know how to stay. I want to be the person who stays, the person who remains when life becomes difficult, the person who chooses love not only during beautiful moments, but during painful ones too. The person who reminds you that you never have to face your battles alone again. And maybe one day, when we look back on our lives, we will laugh about all the years we spent searching, all the years we wondered if the other person existed, all the years we questioned the timing, because from the other side of the story, everything will make sense. The delays, the detours, the disappointments, the waiting, the unanswered questions, they will no longer feel like wasted time. They will feel like preparation for a love that required both of us to grow before we were ready to receive it. I think about waking up beside you years from now, looking at the life we created together, the memories, the challenges we survived, the dreams we achieved, the ordinary days that became precious simply because we shared them. And I know something important. The greatest gift you will give me won't be excitement, it won't be perfection, it won't be a fairy tale, it will be companionship. The knowledge that no matter what happens, there is someone walking beside me, someone who understands, someone who cares, someone who chooses me as deliberately as I choose her. That kind of love is rare. And because it is rare, it is worth waiting for. Every year, every season, every lonely chapter, every unanswered prayer, because one day my heart will finally find you, and when it does, I won't feel like I discovered something new. I will feel like I found something that belonged to me all along. A soul I was always meant to meet, a hand I was always meant to hold, a voice I was always meant to hear, a heart I was always meant to protect. And in that moment, every road that led me away from the wrong people will suddenly reveal its purpose. Every closed door, every goodbye, every ending, every setback, every lonely night, every season of waiting, every lesson life placed in front of me, they will all point toward the same destination. You future wife, there is something I need you to understand. If we ever sit together and talk about the years before we met, I hope you never think those years were empty. I hope you never believe I was simply waiting, because the truth is, while I was waiting for you, life was preparing me for you. Every challenge I faced was teaching me something I would eventually need in order to love you better. Every disappointment was shaping my character. Every setback was building patience. Every mistake was creating wisdom. And every lonely season was teaching me how to appreciate the gift of having someone truly special beside me. When people hear the phrase waiting for love, they often imagine someone standing still, but I wasn't standing still. I was growing. I was changing. I was becoming the man you will eventually meet is not the same man I was years ago. Life transformed me. The difficult days transformed me. The failures transformed me. The moments when everything seemed uncertain transformed me. There were seasons when nothing happened the way I planned. Dreams fell apart. Expectations disappeared. People I trusted walked away. Situations I believed would last came to an end. And in those moments, I had a choice. I could become bitter, or I could become better. Not every day was perfect. Not every lesson was easy. Sometimes growth hurt. Sometimes letting go hurt. Sometimes accepting reality hurt. But pain has a strange way of revealing what truly matters. It strips away illusions. It removes unnecessary things. It teaches us who we really are. And slowly, life taught me that love is not about finding someone to complete you. It is about finding someone to share your completeness with. That lesson changed everything, because for a long time, like many people, I thought love would rescue me. I thought love would fix every lonely feeling. I thought love would magically solve every problem. But as the years passed, I realized something important. It isn't your responsibility to heal wounds I refuse to face. It isn't your responsibility to carry burdens I never learned to manage. It isn't your responsibility to create my happiness. I wanted to become a man who could stand on his own feet. A man who could bring strength into a relationship instead of dependence, a man who could offer peace instead of chaos, a man who could give love freely rather than demand it constantly. And that required growth, real growth, the kind nobody sees, the kind that happens quietly, the kind that happens when nobody is applauding, the kind that happens behind closed doors. I learned how to be alone without feeling abandoned. I learned how to enjoy silence without fearing it. I learned how to face difficult emotions without running from them. I learned how to accept myself, my flaws, my imperfections, my weaknesses, because how could I fully accept you if I couldn't even accept myself? Life also taught me empathy. The older I became, the less interested I was in judging people, because everyone is fighting battles nobody else can see. Everyone carries pain. Everyone has fears. Everyone has scars. And one day, when you tell me about yours, I want to listen with understanding rather than judgment. I want to be the kind of man who makes you feel safe enough to be yourself, safe enough to tell the truth, safe enough to remove the mask the world often forces people to wear. Because love should feel like freedom, not performance, not pressure, not perfection. Freedom, I also learned patience, a lesson I never wanted but desperately needed. Life rarely moves according to our schedule. Things happen when they happen. People arrive when they arrive. Opportunities come when they come. And fighting reality only creates suffering. So I learned to trust timing, not because I always understood it, but because resisting it changed nothing. Maybe that's why I never stopped believing in you, even when years passed, even when I had no evidence, even when the future felt unclear, because some things are worth trusting before they become visible. And somehow, deep inside, I trusted that our paths would meet when the time was right. I imagine you were growing too, learning your own lessons, facing your own fears, discovering your own strength, becoming the woman I will eventually love. Maybe there were moments when you questioned whether real love still existed. Maybe there were moments when disappointment tempted you to lower your standards. Maybe there were moments when loneliness felt overwhelming. But you kept moving forward. You kept growing. You kept becoming. And because of that, our future story becomes even more meaningful because it isn't the story of two perfect people finding each other. It is the story of two imperfect people who refused to stop growing. Two people who kept believing, two people who continued becoming better versions of themselves. And when we finally meet, I don't think the most beautiful thing will be our similarities. I think the most beautiful thing will be the way our journeys understand each other, the way your scars recognize mine, the way your strength inspires mine, the way your heart understands things that words cannot explain. Because true connection happens deeper than conversation. It happens at the level of experience, the level of understanding, the level of shared humanity. Future wife, if there is one thing I hope you always know, it is this. You were never an afterthought in my life. Even before I knew you, the choices I made were influenced by the hope of meeting you someday. The standards I kept, the lessons I embraced, the patience I practiced, the growth I pursued. All of it was connected to the possibility of you because I wanted to become someone worthy of a deep and lasting love. Not perfect, just ready to communicate, ready to commit, ready to remain, ready to choose love even when life becomes difficult. And one day, when our lives finally intersect, you may never fully realize how many years of preparation happened before that moment. You may only see the version of me standing in front of you, the calm version, the patient version, the loving version, the dependable version. But behind that man will be countless unseen battles, countless lessons, countless moments of growth, all of them helping shape the person who now has the privilege of loving you. And perhaps that is the hidden beauty of waiting. The waiting itself changes us, it prepares us, it teaches us, it turns us into people capable of receiving the blessings we once prayed for. So if anyone ever asks me why I stayed alone for so long, why I refused to settle, why I kept believing despite the passing years, my answer will always be simple, because somewhere in the future there was a woman worth preparing for, a woman whose heart would make every lesson meaningful, a woman whose presence would make every season of growth worthwhile, a woman whose love would feel less like luck and more like destiny finally arriving at the perfect time, and everything I became was preparing me to love you.